Greetings, ASA members. About 50 years ago, the late Senator Everett Dirksen of Illinois quipped, "A million here, a million there, and pretty soon you're talking real money." Well, President Biden's new American Recovery Plan Act blew that quote out of the water, and so perhaps we should modify it to say a billion here, a billion there, and pretty soon you're talking real money, because that Recovery Act is real money to America's schools. For example, Arizona, the total, I'll call this ESSER 3. We've had ESSER 1, ESSER 2, now we have ESSER 3. The total award to Arizona schools is $2,582,098,697. Okay, that's serious money, $2.5 billion. Of that, the state education agency, i.e. Arizona Department of Education, will get about $192 million. That's their 10%. And of that, they are restricted to certain activities. For example, they're required to address learning loss. So the total local education agency, i.e. school district assistants and charters, will be $2,323,888,000. So we're getting $2.3 billion plus dollars. Serious money, no matter how you look at it. In fact, this is a generational opportunity for Arizona schools, most Arizona schools, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Now, remember, of that, 20% of the money you as public schools and charters are getting, 20% of that must be set aside to address learning loss, very specifically. How might you address that learning loss? The law mentions 4 ways: summer learning and enrichment, not just necessarily making up learning loss, but also enrichment. Comprehensive after-school programs, the key there is comprehensive, not just tutoring. Extended day programs, extending the school day, longer school hours, or extended year programs. If you want to add a week at the beginning of the year, or a couple weeks, or go into a modified school year schedule, you can do that as well, because that requires paying teachers and classified staff more, paying bus drivers more. Those are all now possibilities. Remember, if you do extend the year, that can work for a couple of years. That can work through 23-24, FY 23-24. After that, the money's gone, and you truncate the school year again. So remember, these learning loss, this 20%, whatever you do must be evidence-based, must address academic and social emotional needs, and must address the needs of those special groups highly impacted by COVID-19. And those subgroups would be all the major racial and ethnic groups, as well as children from low-income families, as well as children with disabilities, as well as English learners, as well as certain gender and migrant status groups, as well as students experiencing homelessness, and children and youth in foster care. So you have to track and make sure you're serving the needs of many, many different special groups. Finally, there's another new requirement in ESSER 3. In addition to maintenance of effort, of course, there's now there's another MOE, maintenance of equity. Maintenance of equity. They tuck that into this bill. That takes place not this current fiscal year, but for 21-22, FY22 and FY23. And this has implications, big implications. This says your quartile of schools that are most economically disadvantaged, the quartile of schools in your district that are most economically disadvantaged, you cannot cut staff or spending at those schools beyond what you might be doing at any other schools. So those 2 fiscal years has huge implications for how you're addressing staff and student spending. You will be required, in fact, to track spending right down to the school level and report it. Just something to think about for those next 2 fiscal years, FY22 and FY23. So, how much will your district or charter school get? Well, Sasha Pudelski at AASA says one way is to figure out what you got in ESSER 2 and multiply that by 2.3 times. So if your district got 5 million in ESSER 2, you maybe would be getting 12 million in ESSER 3. If your district got 20 million in ESSER 2, you'll maybe get 45 million in ESSER 3. If your district got 200,000 in ESSER 2, maybe you'll get 500,000 or 450,000 in ESSER 3. So think about that. Now the timeline, remember, this is based on, before I get to the timeline, this is based on Title 1A, the October 1st enrollment of this year of your district in Title 1A, and it uses poverty data, census data, reports on poverty, not the free and reduced price lunch data. So those of you who are low Title I districts, meaning you don't have many Title I students, and you didn't get much in ESSER 1, and you didn't get much in ESSER 2, you're not going to get as much in ESSER 3 either. Those of you who have high Title I programs, lots of poverty kids, you're going to get a lot of money again. Now, remember this is 3 fiscal years. ESSER 1, the CARES Act, ended September 30th, will end September 30th, 2022. That's the end of the time in which you can encumber ESSER 1, the CARES Act. ESSER 2 passed right after the holidays last year. You must encumber that money by September 30th, 2023. Now, the American Recovery Plan Act, ESSER 3, must encumber that by September 30th, 2024. So you got 3 years. Think about that then. Think in terms of a 3-year spending plan, because when all this money runs out, you don't want to go boom off a fiscal cliff. So be careful on the spending so you don't hit that fiscal cliff. 2 other things. There's no supplant involving any of these fundings. You can spend them as you wish. And there's no equitable services component in ESSER 3 as there was in ESSER 1. Want to know more about this? Well, of course you do. And there's a webinar on ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, March 24th, that's Wednesday, at 2 p.m. ADA will give you many more details at this webinar sponsored by ASBA, ASBO, ASA, and the Charter School Association this Wednesday. It's time to think about honoring the good work that ASA administrators, your colleagues, have been doing. There's several end-of-the-year awards that are conferred upon the good work that I just mentioned. On our website, you can see these awards and their applications, and the due date on many of them is, in fact, April 9th. So it's time to look at that under the awards tab on the ASA website. In closing, I'd like to highlight 3 end-of-the-year conferences. The APEL conference, Breaking the Mold, Challenges of Preparing School Leaders for Supporting Transformative Teaching and Learning Environments. Thursday, April 29th, that's the APEL conference. The Institute for Excellence, June 6th through 8th in Flagstaff. A virtual conference, Crisis Communication Leadership Workshop, Part 1, June 9th, and that's an all-day virtual conference. And finally, the annual summer conference, ASA's Public Education, The Path Ahead, June 13th through 15th in Tucson at the El Conquistador Resort. We hope to see you at these final end-of-the-year ASA events. Keep up the good work that you've been doing, the heroic efforts to educate our Arizona students.